So why are food stamps administered by the USDA? Turns out back in the Great Depression, the first food stamps aimed to solve two problems. While poor people in cities were going hungry, farmers were growing a surplus of food. So the Department of Agriculture sold stamps that gave half off produce items farmers couldn't get rid of. That program ended in 1943. Among the reasons, surpluses had disappeared. In the 1960s, the Johnson administration launched the current food stamp program as part of its war on poverty. It had nothing to do with farm policy, but there was a political advantage to keeping food stamps under the USDA. It made each massive farm bill popular with lawmakers from cities and rural communities alike. In a surprise move, however, a group of breakaway House Republicans just scuttled the latest farm bill. They now want a separate vote on food stamps, hoping to draw attention to what they see as wasteful spending that can also make the poor too dependent on government. They weren't the first to worry about that. It was on the minds of those who launched the war on poverty.
The days of the dole in our country are numbered. Our American answer to poverty is not to make the poor more secure in their poverty, but to reach down and to help them lift themselves.
It sounded really good at the time, too. You know, give a hand up, not a hand out.
At that time, Charles Murray was a 21-year-old history major at Harvard, a liberal policy wonk coming of age in heady times.
We were really optimistic in the 1960s because we'd never tried to use government programs to eradicate poverty. Turned out to be really, really tough.
Murray would come to understand how tough a few years later. After earning a PhD in political science at MIT, he went to work for a Washington think tank with a government contract to evaluate the effectiveness of the Great Society's anti-poverty programs. Murray's groundbreaking research transformed him from a liberal to a libertarian and helped transform the nation's welfare policy as well. Was there a eureka moment during your research?
There was. I came across a source which had calculated the poverty rates back to World War II. The poverty rate had been going down even faster before the war on poverty. And that was the moment I said, oh, it's only after the war on poverty was a few years along that we stopped making progress.
It slowed.
It stopped.
Murray's landmark 1984 book, Losing Ground, not only concluded the war on poverty failed to help people out of poverty, but it had devastating consequences for an underclass stuck in a culture of dependency. Your findings were controversial.
Very much so. They're conventional wisdom now. Oh, they were conventional wisdom by the early 1990s.
When you can, you must work, because welfare should be a second chance, not a way of life.
By 1996, a Republican Congress passed and the Democratic president signed a welfare reform bill. In the years since, that law has been hailed as a success, helping people get off the welfare rolls and gain self-respect. But Murray thinks America is unlearning many lessons of the recent past.
Food stamps as a specific program is one of the most obvious ways in which the government has reached into American neighborhoods and says it's okay to be dependent. The cost of that is the kind of pride that used to be the hallmark of Americans.
That puts Murray directly at odds with Joel Berg, who, you'll remember, laments that the stigma that still surrounds food stamps is making it hard for groups like his to fight the specter of mass hunger in America. Shouldn't there be at least some stigma?
No.
At all?
No more than there should be a stigma for a small business person getting a government grant or loan. No more than there should be a stigma for someone riding their private car over a government paved road.
He and I are on completely opposite sides of that question. I wish people would understand that if you don't stigmatize one set of behaviors, you can't celebrate another. You can't say of the family that doesn't accept them and that says, we will do it on our own, thank you very much. You can't celebrate them. I want the culture to say of them, you guys are wonderful. And destigmatizing food stamps makes that impossible.
Well, I totally disagree.
Representative Jan Schakowsky is a four-term Democrat from the suburbs of Chicago.
It implies somehow that these low-income people are wanting to be freeloaders and the federal government helping them.
Do you worry about hurting poor people over the long term at all?
Not at all. Most people are on the food stamp program for less than a year. 1 out of 4 American children now gets food stamps. Do we really want to take food out of the mouths of hungry children? Shame on us.
I have to smile, Brett, because otherwise I'd erupt. I guess they don't understand that people like me aren't just stingy and don't want to spend money on food stamps.
Someone listening to this could say, Charles Murray's saying that the government is making people lazy.
You know, that's obviously a simplification of what I'm saying. But if you rephrase it slightly and say, Charles Murray says that the government is systematically undermining a civic culture of independence that was a great American treasure, that's pretty accurate.
So Murray, now 70 years old, finds himself back in another fierce battle of ideas he believes must be won. But his latest book, Coming Apart, says that battle is being fought on new turf. He says what were once the pathologies of the underclass are becoming the mainstream.
If you go to any working class neighborhood in the United States and get to talking about the guys around town and their attitude toward work, yeah, you'll get some cases where guys are trying very hard to get work and unable to do it. The story you will hear much more commonly is, oh, he doesn't want a job.
Which sounds like someone we met earlier in this hour. So I asked Murray about Jason Greenslate, that blissfully content La Jolla, California food stamp recipient. He surfs a lot. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't want one. He has no problem whatsoever taking $200 a month from taxpayers. Are you surprised we could find someone willing to tell us that?
Doesn't surprise me a bit.
Jason's not an anomaly.
No, Jason has cousins in every town in America.
And stories like Jason's trouble Murray, not because of the money wasted. It's the lives, Murray believes, that are being frittered away.
That guy is kidding himself. He is passing time as pleasantly as possible right now. That's not what constitutes a satisfying human life. The sad thing is that the whole philosophical grounding of the welfare state encourages people to think of life in terms of the picnic.
Or as Jason would call it, the rat life. He gets the last word after the break. Employed musician, beach bum, doesn't want to take a regular job with a regular boss. We wondered how Jason's fellow Americans would feel about helping pay for food stamps for someone like him. Turns out, according to a Fox News poll conducted for this special, they have a problem with it, overwhelmingly so. But as John Roberts learned, Jason doesn't understand why.
Just like solitary play, no job. To be a part of that life, you can't have a job.
You can't have a job. The wisdom of 29-year-old Jason Greenslate.
And now you have to have a food stamp card.
EBT, snap, homie.
Snap. I ain't got no mother job. I'd rather be broke, steal, and rob.
In case you didn't catch those lyrics, Jason's singing, I ain't got no MF job. I'd rather be broke, steal, and rob.
Tell me what's behind no job.
Have no job, living the dream, doing your thing.
So living the dream is having no job?
Yeah.
And how is that going for you, by the way?
It's going great, man. Yeah, it's going really well.
Broke down, run around here, we come up and down. Won't you come party with me?
You see the girls dancing up on the tables and while we're playing music. It's an everyday thing. $200 from the man, that's what's up.
This is the plan. This is the long-term plan.
Yeah,
All right.
it's the job.
Jason does aspire to something more. His band has signed with a record label. It doesn't pay them anything yet, but he believes it's the start of something big.
Tell me about the record deal. You in the studio yet?
Yeah, we've been in the studio. Hopefully the fireworks start going off.
So where do you see this all going?
To the top, man. To the sky.
Heaven knows, Jason Greenslate might actually make it. Or maybe his destiny is just the rat life. If so, he's okay with that. Especially if you're still willing to pick up the tab.
Some are rich and some are poor. Some are...
The food stamp program was designed to be for a point in your life where you were, down, things weren't going well. It's not, quote, a point in your life. It's kind of, this is life for me.
Yeah, this is how I live, man. Cute chicks, doing my thing, This is the way I want to live, and I don't really see anything changing.
It used to be that, if somebody's on food stamps, it's like, hey, they're on food stamps, loser.
Like, why would it be bad in any way? It's free food, it's awesome.
What would you say to somebody who's looking at this saying, I'm working hard, paying taxes, so that Jason can live his surfer lifestyle, be in his band, and get $200 a month to buy good quality food?
Thank you, taxpayers. Thanks.
Do you feel guilty at all about doing this?
No.
Rugged individualism. It's a term that attempts to capture the American values of hard work, self-reliance, and pride in pulling your own weight. Those values and a legal and political system that reward them help explain why America has prospered like no other country. At the same time, we're also a compassionate and generous people, willing to help the poor and feed the hungry. Our nation must find harmony in these two values so as not to lose all that made America great to begin with. That's our report, but the conversation continues on Twitter. Let me know what you think. Again, use the hashtag Fox News Reporting. Thanks for watching.